Hey, welcome to Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast. This is a show all about farmers markets. Whether you're a farmers market manager, a farmer, or a food producer selling at farmers markets, or just a curious farmers market shopper, this is the podcast for you. For today's episode, we are doing a special roundtable discussion with the Tent Talk hosts, and we answer some tricky farmers market questions we received from vendors. Hey, I'm Bridget Myers. I'm one of your hosts, and I've spent years as an on-site farmers market manager, and I've done it all from pulling permits to social media marketing.
I'm another one of your hosts, Justine Marzoni-Mead, farmers market vendor, hot sauce maker, and event facilitator for the Intense Conference.
And I'm Kat Fields-White, Director of San Diego Markets, still an active farmers market manager, and founder of Intense Business.
All right, welcome back to Tent Talk. Today we're doing another rapid fire episode where we answer a bunch of questions we've received from farmers market vendors. So this is going to be fun. Let's see what they ask.
Right?
Justine's our resident expert, but Kat and I teach a Vendor 101 class every month. So we teach aspiring new vendors how to become vendors and how to be successful ones. So I feel like we have a nice...
So maybe we'll have some good answers, and then we'll have Justine's right there out in the field on the front line perspective.
Well, yes. I'm also a Vendor 101 alum.
Oh, that's true.
So you're even extra expert. Yes. You're an extra expert at the table, everyone. All right, well, thanks so much for sending these questions in, and we will get started. So this first one is... I'm a new farmers market vendor debating whether or not to give out samples. The burning question. My product is expensive and labor intensive. It's cheese. And I'm afraid it will cut into my bottom line to give out free samples every week. But I also recognize that I will likely sell more if people can taste the quality of my product. How do I set up a sampling system that keeps shoppers from eating me out of business? This is a great question.
It is a good question.
We get this question a lot from brand new vendors and from vendors that have been at the market asking about what can I do about samples, more or less, or
have an issue with sampling that has become an issue for them and want to know how to solve it.
Exactly.
So what do you guys do, Justine?
So we do samples.
Yeah.
We do lots of
samples.
You
have to do samples.
So we sell
you have
hot
a really
sauce.
differentiated product.
Hot sauce and pesto.
Yeah.
And a really unique barbecue sauce. I feel like you have to taste it.
Yeah. And our sauces, they're in different packaging that doesn't, from far away, it doesn't necessarily look like hot sauce. So we're a vendor that does a lot of like face-to-face education with our shoppers saying like, this is what we are, this is what we do, this is how you cook with them. And we recognize that a lot of other products don't need that as much. But for us, we do samples, and I think it really drives sales, and it gives us the opportunity to have that face time with our shoppers. So a couple things I will say to this particular person. One, I agree that it will really help increase sales if your shoppers have the opportunity to taste your product. But you do need to budget for that. So you need to ask yourself, can I afford to, give these many samples? Also, the way that we do samples would be in line with our local health department is we hold all our samples behind our booth and we hand them out on little toothpicks. And we have a hand washing station. And so because we're handing out the samples, it really controls the amount that people are gobbling up.
I think that's so important.
Buffet.
Yeah.
And it creates an engagement. So you don't want people to just randomly be sampling. You want to hand them the sample and take that opportunity to have a little bit of conversation about what makes your product different and what makes it special and get their feedback. I mean, maybe that affects how your product line develops.
And we cut up bread into teeny tiny pieces and we put a little blob of a sauce on each piece and we say, this is the spicy vegan pesto, this is what you're sampling, and we hand it over to them and explain it to them. So that really controls the amount that they're sampling, and because it's so limited in that way, we haven't had a problem with occasionally once in a while there will be kind of a weirdo who just like stands in front of the booth all day and just keeps asking for more, and at a certain point you kind of have to be like, hey bro, you're done.
Yeah.
But that happens very rarely because of the little system that we've set up.
Yeah.
But I've seen other vendors that, and this doesn't make the health department happy either, that set out a whole row of samples, hummus, for instance, in different flavors with crackers and chips along the way, and they're letting people serve themselves. One thing, the health department doesn't love that because you got hands touching things that might be touched by somebody else. But also, I mean, we get reviews on Yelp that say, this is such a good market to go to for breakfast because there's so many samples.
Yeah, it's like Costco. You can just go through and get a whole
buffet.
Yeah, so if you do the feeding trough method, that gets a little out of control sometimes. But to this person who's selling cheese, I I think if you cut it up into very small pieces, we have somebody at one of our farmers market, or they were a vendor that was selling really expensive sausages, and they would cut off a little tiny sliver, the perfect amount that you could taste it and you can enjoy it, but it wasn't cutting into their bottom line. And that way it gives you the opportunity to have that face-to-face connection with your customer. You're explaining what that particular item is. I think it'll be really helpful. But we do have vendors that don't do samples, specifically if they're selling meat or other items. Sometimes they have to hold other permits to be able to do that. And so if you want to find out more about that, we actually have a rancher that's going to be at our conference named Ben Grimes. And he is a really successful meat vendor, but he doesn't ever do sampling, and he never has. And he kind of has his own little philosophy about that. So you can, if you come to the conference, you can pick his brain on that.
Yeah, that's smart. I mean, in addition to the cost, the smaller samples, what you want to do is just ignite people's taste buds and get them to purchase the product, not feed them. We had a fairly new crepe vendor for a while that would give people like a quarter of a crepe as a sample. Well, then they're full. They don't need to buy a crepe.
I don't need a crepe anymore.
That's true.
Wasn't a good plan.
It curbs that like initial
that little craving.
It's the same if I get a sample of a sweet. You know, I usually don't. I do want a whole cookie, but usually I just need a little piece of sugar. I don't need a whole thing. So if I get that little satisfaction, then it will keep me from buying a whole cookie. So I think for this person, if you're selling expensive cheese, that's a really quality thing to sample. But other stuff, you might not need that as much. We don't need a sample of a popsicle to buy a popsicle.
Exactly. Yeah. Those folks don't sample. So there's a lot of people that are successful without sampling.
And a lot of the farmers don't sample, like...
Oh yeah, a lot of farmers don't sample. I'd say maybe
citrus does, or
I mean some do.
Some do.
Apples.
Some of the apples do, so that you can tell the difference between one variety of apple and another. But we have a lot of farm samples that don't. I mean, the berry guys, they sell grillions of berries, and they don't let you eat the berries.
I mean, you're not sampling like lettuce. Like there's just like some things you don't need. I would like a little lettuce.
I like a bean now and again.
But I think you have to put it in your budget, and especially I think Justin has mentioned this before. When you start out at the market, yes, a lot of your budget is going to, not a lot, but like a fair amount is going to go to sampling because you're going to be getting the interest of everyone. It's a brand new product. No one has sampled it. But then as you are staying at the market, a lot of your customers, they're regular customers. They know what it tastes like. Like I don't sample anything hardly at all anymore at the market because I have my regular shopping list. So it's like, I'm going to take your hummus home. Like, I know what it tastes like. I'll just get a tub of hummus. I don't need to sample it anymore. And so you get like a group of people who aren't going to sample and they're still going to buy your product. So, but at the beginning, no one has tried it before.
Right.
So you will get those blind buyers, I think, that are just like, oh, I'm sure it's good. And they'll just buy it. But you do need to kind of work it into your business plan. And if you don't, it could screw everything up because you are spending money when you sample.
And if you've got an unfamiliar product and it's really good, I mean, there's nothing that will close a sale like a good sample.
Oh,
so, you know, if you can, as long as you can budget for it, it doesn't wipe you out. Keep the samples small. I mean, it definitely is a sales tool.
Oh, definitely. People have kind of like forced samples on me, like, please try it. And I'm like, oh, I'm not in the mood. Like the coconut peanut butter guy, I'm like, that's okay. I like peanut butter. It's fine. God. I don't need it. He made me try it one day.
So good.
I buy it in like vats. I bought like 6 that day because he made me sample it. And so it's like aggressive samplers, that's a whole other thing. But he was really nice about it and he was just very persistent. Like, I think you'll like it. Why don't you try it today? Try this little piece, and like really got close to me with it, you know. But now I buy so much of it, so it can really. That's how you build your business. Sometimes, you know.
Also, just thinking down the line, if you are going to be expanding your business into retail, that still includes sampling. A lot of
there's no such thing as a cheese shop that doesn't sample.
So I say do it. It helps.
Just plan for it. Just keep them small. Make sure that you engage when you're passing them out.
And don't be afraid to cut people off. Tell them that they've had enough.
Politely.
You really do need a polite way to like practice it. A polite way to decline additional samples. Because we've had vendors that have come to us and said, what do I do? This guy won't stop sampling. And oh my gosh, like he comes every week and he never buys anything. And so we have to explain, like, okay, you need to explain
You're
to
not
them
legally
very
obligated to sample. But you do, obviously, you want to be polite about it and tactful. And
you can bring it to their attention.
Yeah. Good question.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one.
Okay.
I recently hired an employee to work my booth at the farmer's market a couple of times a week. Since hiring them, I've seen a significant decrease in sales. Although I appreciate a break from working the markets, I'm not sure if I can afford keeping on the help if sales don't pick up. What should I do? This is a tough one.
Mm-hmm. Y'all don't use employees, do you?
We don't.
It's always you and Dave.
We have,
Oh, you have had employees, haven't you?
We like hired my little brother and sister for a day. I love them, but they were like placeholders. I found, talking to a lot of other vendors, and they've commiserated that no one is ever going to sell your product as well as you sell your
that's absolutely true. There's no doubt about that.
So this doesn't surprise me. But
so there's ways that people get around it. I mean, one way is to give your employees a bonus based on what they sell. Now, what you can't do legally at a farmer's market, since you're prescribing the hours and the days that your employee has to be there, you can't just make this person a commission-only salesperson. That you're going to get into labor law issues with that. So just be aware of that. That's important. A lot of vendors, I think, aren't aware.
Yeah, they think it's a farmer's market and they're just coming in to sell, so they don't need to be paid like an employee. That's not true.
Yeah,
you need to follow all those labor
all those
laws.
rules. It's complicated, so make sure you get all that background before you get started. But you can certainly pay them what is at least equal to minimum wage, and then give them a bonus based on how much they sell, and that gives them some incentive and some motivation to make sure that they're talking to customers and not to their friends, or that
I know a couple of vendors that work on that. They're not the business owners, they're employees, and they are rock stars.
Yeah,
and they
absolutely
blow us out of the water in sales a lot of weeks because they're really incentivized to do that. So that's definitely an option. Also, I would just ask this employee, or ask this the person who wrote this question, maybe for a couple weeks you just decide to show up to the market too and just hang out with your employee. I know you probably trained them, but maybe they're hanging out on their phone, or maybe, I've noticed that a lot of our sales are because they have a relationship with my husband, who is there every single week, and they come to hear his jokes, they come to say hi, they come to chit chat with him. And so for this business owner, it's going to take a couple weeks for these shoppers to get to know your new employee, and maybe they just don't like him as much. They don't know him.
Yeah.
So maybe you need to liaison them into a new relationship with a shopper, introduce them, help them learn their names, help them learn your regulars. And once they find their footing, those sales will probably pick up. But so much of farmers market is that relationship between the vendor and the shopper.
I mean, we say that in our vendor classes. It's product, packaging, and people. You've got to have those people skills, and you've got to be somebody that develops relationships. And so, maybe it's on you that you need to train your employees a little bit more about how that works. Charlotte Smith is going to be at the Intense Conference, and she is a master of relationship marketing and teaching you how to build that relationship with your shoppers. And as the owner or manager, or as employees, that's always important. She's told us a story about going to a market, which shall remain nameless, and going through the whole market and not ever having anybody even say, "Oh, I like your blouse," or "Isn't it a pretty day?" or anything that would spark relationship, as opposed to, "Here, taste this." So all that stuff is important, and it's important to remember. You might ask your farmer's market manager, too, if they're observing anything, because we have vendors that contact us and say, I've had this employee there the last 3 weeks, my sales are way down, and we've been able to say, well, I got to tell you, nice kid, but he's sitting in the back of the booth on his phone the whole time, and that's not how you make sales. You got to stand up. You got to make.
I'm millennial.
So you can say that because you're a millennial, but. Well, and I've seen older people do the same thing. I've actually had a woman that would sit in the back of the booth and read a book, never looked up. And you've got to make that eye contact. You've got to relate to those shoppers. But I would imagine if you call your farmer's market manager and ask if they've observed anything, they may be happy to tell you that, you know what, they're not doing this. Or we had a farmer recently that said, my sales are way lower than they should be. And I was able to immediately say, well, you've got a problem. There's no pricing on your produce. And that intimidates people. They're afraid to go put that on the scale and find out that it's way more than they have in their pocket. That's going to make them feel bad. And she said, no, we have price signs that go on all the produce. I said, well, they're not up. I can assure you they have not been up for the last 3 or 4 weeks. And she said, well, our employees know they have to put them up. I said, well, they may know it, but they're not doing it.
Maybe check on your employees once in a while.
You got to.
Some people get employees and then they don't. I never see the business owner again.
Right.
And then their sales are slowly declining, and then they just pull out of the market because their business isn't doing well. Well, it's like, well, when you were here, it was great. The market hasn't changed that much. Right. It's probably the person selling it.
Yeah, they need some additional, either they're not a good fit, or maybe they are and they just need some additional training.
Yeah, and I remember it's just like any employee in any retail business that you have, maybe there's a fraud issue going on.
That's true.
It's a cash
Sadly,
business.
that's true.
We had a vendor whose employee set up her own Square account and put a Square reader in her phone and was swiping customers' credit cards and putting money in her own bank account. And remember that vendor said, this market is like really gone downhill. I can't believe it. And then he came back a couple weeks later and he told us, I almost left the market, but then I found out that my employee was really, really stealing from me. And we don't see that very often, but that could happen. So, try to figure out, do a little investigation. Yeah. Gotta keep an eye out.
One more thing that I will say is, I know as a small business owner, it's hard because you do everything most of the time. And so it sounds like whoever sent in this question is really enjoying a little time off of, which I totally understand. But you might want to ask yourself, would it be easier to have time off from the farm or time off from the kitchen?
Or hire a bookkeeper and not have to do your own accounting.
So maybe the reason why you were doing so well at the farmer's market before you hired an employee is because your niche is in sales. And maybe you should be the person at the farmer's market, and it would be easier to find an employee to help you out in another aspect of your business. So before leaving the market or firing the employee, maybe see if that employee is better suited helping you out in another aspect of your business.
That makes a ton of sense. Yeah. Think about what your superpower is.
Yeah. I feel like we have said that to Kat before. We want you at the market all the time because that's where your strength is and you make the market better when you're there. What can we take off your plate during the week so that you have the time and you don't have the pressure on Saturdays to, I have to do this accounting thing and then I'll come to the market. Well, how can we make it so that you are fully there and you're not trying to do bookkeeping stuff while you're there or do this background stuff? Like, how can we manage that? Because your strength is really, so many strengths, but is being there at the market and talking to customers and shoppers and vendors and doing all that stuff. So I think with vendors, it's the same thing. A lot of vendors are so great at being at the market. And so it's like, get someone else to do the filing, get someone else to do the cleaning or whatever you're spending your other time on. And then save that part for an employee and you be the person in the booth.
Yeah, but if you are looking for an employee to work the booth, a great place to find them is at the farmer's market.
Oh, that's true too.
We have a lot of vendor friends that they've had employees that kind of float around and work different booths.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a good thing and sometimes it's not a good thing. But I do know that there are people that are great at kind of coming in, working for a small business owner, rocking it at the sales booth, and they go home and they do, whatever. But so that it could also be a way that you might be able to vet an employee if a business owner has had somebody work for them. They could say like, I trust this person. They did good inventory. They work great with customers. And they might be somebody that they can sub in for you every now and then. They don't have to be a full-time employee, but they can just, every once in a while when you want to take a, weekend getaway, you can call somebody that has worked for one of your other farmers market friends that you can trust.
Yeah, that's a great person to find, someone that can just float around and sub at a few different farmers market businesses.
Right.
Yeah, it's handy.
We've got a few of those.
Yeah.
Most of them are great.
employees,
farmers market vendor employees that have been at the market since it started, but for 10 different vendors. I'm like, wait, aren't you?
You're back.
Never mind.
You're back. You're wearing a different shirt.
Good question.
Yeah, that is a good question. I feel like you have to ask yourself that question. If your vendor business is going to survive, you have to ask, like, am I ever going to get a break? Or how do I do that? Like, how do I, allow my business in someone else's hand at the market? Or do I figure out a way so that doesn't have to happen and I can be at the market? It's such an important part of being a vendor. You're not
just to avoid burnout.
Exactly. And you're not, doing a wholesale situation. You're not working in an office or a cubicle or something. Like, this is a face-to-face business. So you have to make that an important part of what you're aware of. Yeah. All right, next question.
I've been a vendor at the farmer's market for 3 years, and I'm considering changing my business name because it's difficult for our customers to pronounce and remember. That is a problem. I'm hoping that with a new, easy-to-remember name, our returning customers will spread the word about us, and we'll see more new customers. Or it could be total self-sabotage. Your thoughts?
Baby Clydesdale, do you want to answer that?
We have so many thoughts.
We own babyclydesdale.com.
There's that,
although it's a very strange name and people are like, what are you doing with Baby Clydesdales? It's unique enough where people can remember us and point us out, and the search engine optimization is pretty good. But we have had this before where it is hard. It's very hard to pronounce for people that don't speak English or who haven't ever seen the word Clydesdale. It's also very hard to spell.
I'll have to say, when you first joined the market and I was trying to tag you in Facebook posts, I didn't know how to spell Clydesdale. Yeah. And I didn't know that until I tried to spell Clydesdale. Now I'm an expert at spelling it.
It can be confusing because it has absolutely nothing to do with what we're selling. But it's one of those things that it works and it's wacky and it's okay for us.
And the logo works and it's cute. And there are business names that are just so wacky but work because they stick in your mind.
That's true. And we always teach people, you definitely want to have a name that's easy to pronounce and easy to spell so that people will talk about you. If you have a name that's hard to pronounce, then they feel embarrassed when they mispronounce it, so they won't talk to other people about it because they're not sure they're doing it right.
Yeah.
Of course, we say that. And at the same time, we have a business called Intense that we have to spell every time we mention it.
We're having this situation right now. Question writer.
We relate to you so closely. We're like, I don't know, is this a good name? I mean, it describes what we do, but nobody knows how to spell it, and people look for intense business. And I don't know.
We're in the midst of this.
It's a baffling thing.
I think it is really hard, but how do I explain this? I think sometimes having a wacky name, especially on the internet nowadays, if you have an Instagram handle where people can type in what your wacky name and you're the first person to pop up,
that's true.
Can
No
play
confusion.
to your advantage. They can type into Google your wacky name and that's the only thing that pops up. That can be really helpful.
Yeah, where a more common name, they get a whole list of things.
Exactly.
And I'm not sure which one is you. Can you say North Park Farmers Market?
Somebody owns your domain and it causes you a lot of trouble or whatnot. So I think that in terms of changing your name, just choose something that either stick with what you've got or choose something that you can commit to for a very long time.
Yeah, you don't want to keep doing this.
Yeah.
I wish she wrote her business name so we could analyze it.
Yeah, me too. We have some folks that are changing from what I think is a very easy to remember name, doesn't really describe their product, to a shorter version of the name but spelled in an interesting way with the Macron accent mark over the end. And I'm afraid that people are not going to be able to pronounce it or remember it as easily, so we'll see how they do. It is a really cool logo, and it looks very modern, but it is... And neither the new name or the old name really describes what they sell. So
I would just say before switching your name, do a couple things. First, if it's not your first or last name, you're gonna probably have to get a fictitious business license name. So you can go online, check out your county's fictitious business.
Make sure it's available.
I would also just go to Google, type in what you want it to be, see what pops up, see if that domain name or an easy variation of that domain name is available, and go to Instagram and Facebook and type in what you want to change your name to and see what pops up, and just do some simple searches. And then also ask the people at the farmers market, ask your shoppers, say, hey, we're thinking of changing our name to this. What are your thoughts? Is this easier to remember? If we changed our name, would you talk about us more? Would you be shy about pronouncing our name in front of people anymore?
I mean, that's the beauty of the farmers market is you're working, people pay a grundle of dollars to assemble focus groups. You've got a focus group. It's right there in front of you. So it's a really good way to test things. I will say one pro tip about searching your name is have your credit card handy, because if it turns out that your domain is available, you want to register it right then. If you wait, as soon as you've typed it into GoDaddy or any of the search engine places where you can register domain names, if you type it in today and wait until tomorrow to register it, it'll cost you 72 times as much.
That just happened to me actually recently. I typed something into GoDaddy and it was like 99 cents and I was like, sweet, I'll take care of this later. Then the next time I typed it in, it was $2.99.
Yeah.
Because bots buy it up.
Because bots buy them. As soon as they see that it's been searched, they see that it's something in demand and they automatically register it. Sometimes it switches to like $2,700. If it's a popular name. So.
Yeah, but I would just do a basic search. This happens a lot to people. They get big and then they realize that somebody else owns the intellectual property of that name, and then they end up having to make another transition. So before you change, just make sure you do a lot of research and, kind of like you're getting a tattoo. If you're going to be happy with it in a few years, then go for it. But if it's a passing trend or just something you're excited about now that you're not committed to fully, you might end up wishing that you didn't change. So
yeah. I would say just make sure it's easy enough to pronounce, excuse me, and easy enough to spell. I mean, Clydesdale, it's a little difficult to spell, but it's like you can look it up in the dictionary. It's not like a weird spelling.
You can always check a Budweiser ad.
Yeah, true.
Then drink a Budweiser.
No, not a North Park. And then just make sure it's either unique or it talks about your product. I feel like those two things.
Yeah, one or the other.
It has to be one or the other.
Descriptive.
It can be like
unique.
Mother Earth food. Like that just, those really basic names. It's just, they work for some people, that's fine, but I feel like you'll get a lot more bang for your buck, especially at the farmer's market when everything is supposed to be special and unique. It's go with something a little more creative.
Yeah.
Get those creative juices flowing.
Definitely.
But not too creative for people.
Not too
creative, but not too creative.
There's a fine line.
Yeah.
I hope that answers your question.
Okay, last one, Bridget.
Okay. All right, I am not a farmer's market vendor yet, but I am seriously considering starting my own farmer's market business. I have a solid product concept, appropriate funding, and some business acumen.
So you're way ahead of some startups. Carry on.
Yes. I like where you're going with this.
Ahead of most.
What are the most important things I need to know before I pull the trigger? This will be a 5.5-hour podcast episode, everybody. So
I was going to say, because even our basics of Vendor 101, that takes us 5 hours.
Yes.
We're going to be here a long time. Settle in. Get a snack.
Get a snack.
Okay, let's see if we can think of a couple of high points.
We'll sum it up.
All right.
Well, Justine, what do you think, since you're actually vending? So this person has a solid product concept. Okay, that's good.
Okay, that's good. They have
Appropriate funding. Very
Appropriate
good.
funding is huge.
And
Who has that?
they know some about operating a small business.
Okay, that's
which are all two of those things we did not have before. So I won't tell you which one.
And still successful.
Really just simple logistical things that I wish that I had seeped deeply into my mind before we started is one, it's just really hard to get away from your business when, even though we don't have a brick and mortar, we're just at farmers markets each week. I think we've taken 2 or 3 Saturdays off in the last 3 years. And it's hard when both you and your partner, you're both there every single Saturday. So, and although we love the farmers markets, occasionally I'm like, let's get out of town. And it's just tough. So just when you're thinking about starting a farmers market, choose markets that you know that you're committed to be there on that day every single week. And if it's a seasonal market, for sure every single day in that season. And just, if that's not something that you're willing to commit to, you might want to reconsider opening a farmer's market business.
Right.
And secondly, this is kind of funny because I just hit 30, but it takes a toll on your body to stand up all day long in a booth, even with a little cushy pad. And also,
I'll tell you what, sister, doesn't get any easier at 60.
I know, but also you're gonna be lugging around a lot of stuff. So get yourself a good wagon, get yourself a good pair of shoes, and
some inserts in your shoes.
Although I'm sure there's other ways to figure things out if you have specific needs for your body, but just recognize it is a physically demanding and time demanding job. But it's wonderfully fulfilling.
Yeah.
And great. But those are two things that we had no idea when we started, and now they're just basic realities of our everyday farmers market life.
Right.
Yeah, I think Kat and I have that because we're mother and daughter. So when we're the main people running the farmers market, but we need to go to a family reunion, it's really difficult because we're who's going to be in charge at the market because we travel together a lot of the time. Yeah. So it's been a trick over the last 7
requires
years.
More employees if you can't actually commit to being there every single week.
Yeah,
that's important. It's emotionally draining. Keep in mind that any retail business, but farmers markets, you're talking to a lot of people coming through every day. That can have an effect on relationships when you're drained. It's like being in the restaurant business or any business where you're dealing with people all day long. So bear that in mind. And then when they say they have some business acumen, just because you know how to run a business, we've even had people that owned restaurants that came in that doesn't mean they know how to run a business that you have to build your shop every day. And they don't know that even if you have restaurant permits, that's actually not the same permit you need to sell in a farmer's market in a lot of cases. So there may be some specialized permits, insurance requirements, that kind of thing that you're not aware of. So
yeah, it doesn't always translate. And I'd say just always be open to continuing your education as a business person and as a farmer's market business person. Not to only list negative things you're going to wreck your body. You'll never leave town. I think that...
But you'll meet new people.
Yeah, but I think it's very fulfilling. Obviously we all work in the industry, so it's
we like it. Yeah.
Very much like it, and there's a lot of really positive things about it. I think that Maya Madson's episode that we did, it was our second episode of the Tent Talk podcast, when she talked about tracking and organizing from the very beginning and going into your business thinking, I'm going to be the Qualcomm of cookie vendors or whatever she said about her business. She went in with big goals, real goals. She stuck to it. She stayed the course. She went in knowing that this is not just a little tent on the street. This is an actual business, and treat it as such, and track your inventory and track your sales and make notes to yourself and do, batches of your cookies or whatever you're making as a vendor, always kind of evolving, because that's what the farmers market's there.
Make sure you're accurately tracking your costs, all of your costs, the gas it costs you get to the market, an employee if you have them, the cost of goods, all of those things are important.
I think those really contribute to the longevity of a vendor business. Yeah. Some people can just kind of slap it together and go as, put it together as they go. But I do think that the vendors that start off on that real business-minded foot from the very beginning, I have observed as a market manager, seeing 1,000 vendors so far in my career, they are in it for the longer haul, and they don't stress out as much. It doesn't turn into a paycheck to paycheck thing as fast. It's can stay up higher. Like the quality of their performance as a vendor can kind of be in it for the long haul. So,
and realize, like any new business, it takes time to build a business.
Yeah.
So even though the market manager hopefully is doing their job and bringing people to your tent front, unlike in a brick and mortar business where you have to take that side too and bring people to you, still, it takes time to build a business. Those customers are there not just to see you, but all the other wonderful vendors around you. And so you need to do things to stand out, and you need to be ready to kind of hunker down and not necessarily make a big profit the first 4 to 10 weeks while you build that business and people get used to your product. So understand that most people who have overnight success have been working towards that for a long time.
Yeah. One more thing. I feel like I gained like the freshman 15 when I started working farmers markets. Because we would just eat all day
elastic
long.
pants.
Such good food all around you.
You have to realize, like at a certain point, me and Dave were like, we can't eat this much at work. And also we'd be like buying like $9 crepes.
Why is our business cost so high?
So it's really fun at first, and then you have to kind of be like, okay,
gotta pace
get in
myself.
Reality bites.
Get in control. Yeah,
get in control. But I feel like then after that, I love seeing the vendors that kind of are like, so excited to start, and it's all new and difficult, but then really like smooth out and just have a really good time.
Yeah,
and they're such good vendors, and they're consistent. I feel like consistency is so key, and it's a great world to live in, I would say.
You work outside.
Go for it. Yeah.
Talking to fun people.
Yeah.
Eating too much.
Maybe you eat too much, but at least it's all really good.
That's all really good.
You're not like eating too much McDonald's. Like you're eating good food.
This is not a bad way to live.
Yes, exactly. Well, those are really great questions. I like these roundtable episodes.
Yeah, they're fun.
Yeah. If anyone has any other questions for us, you can always send us questions, even when we're not asking specifically for them, because we will regularly do roundtable episodes. Just because we get so many questions, we want to make sure that we're answering them kind of in between.
I think we work
guests.
them into other episodes. It's good to have those to share with our guests too.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's nice. And then we can kind of ask other vendors or market managers when we see them at the Intense conference. We'll get a lot of questions answered, so we can really get some information out there for all of our listeners. So that was a great episode today, guys. Thanks for listening along. And as always, please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to this podcast. And tell us how you liked today's episode, and tell us how you think we're doing at Tent Talk. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss our next episode. And if you want more farmers market tips, you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter at intensebusiness.com and follow us on Instagram at intensebusiness. And because our name is so wacky, I'm going to spell it for you. INTENTS business. Get it? Like intense. So you have to keep explaining it. And our conference is coming up, and we're so excited. We can't wait to see all of you listeners in person, hopefully. We will be doing some recording of some podcasts at the Intense conference, so we're excited to get those out after the conference wraps. But it's coming right up. The 2019 Intense conference will be held in San Diego on February 24th, 25th, and 26th. You can purchase tickets right now on our website at intenseconference.com. That's INTENTS conference.com. And we really hope to see you there. We love this community, and we're excited to get everyone together.
Yay. This podcast is produced by Intense Business, where passion meets profit. Today's episode was recorded and edited by Justine Marzoni Mead. Original music by David Mead. Special thanks to Vendor 101 and San Diego Markets.